What's up, YouTube? Got something a little bit different today, but just as an update, if you haven't seen the last videos, subframe is out of the RX-8. I have the drive shaft, but today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. So I got something pretty cool, and I need to do a little bit of work on it, but it's not totally unrelated to what I'm doing here with the cars. I was kind of debating on whether I want to make a video or not. But like I said, it's not totally unrelated, so I thought it was worth sharing, and I also think it's just really cool. So last weekend on Saturday morning, got up bright and early and went and picked up this old Atlas lathe, and it is in rough shape. Definitely has some work that needs to be done. I want to try and get it running, and let me show you why. So I'm grateful the lathe was offered to me by somebody I work with, a good guy that I work with, and I couldn't really pass it up. It's one of those things I don't know if I'd ever buy, but it's also one of those things that I'd love to have and just, you know, get me started into bigger things, machining things and stuff. And the first thing I want to do with it, and I think it'll be a really easy project, is I want to get rid of these rubber rear subframe bushings. I was looking around for aftermarket options. While I have this thing out, I wanted to replace them. And really the only aftermarket option is Sickie makes an aluminum bushing, solid bushing. And they look like they'd work great, but of course they're $350. So in an attempt to make this project cheap, right as I was taking this out was the same time I picked the lathe up, and I decided, well, I'm gonna try to make my own bushings and see if I can get something that'll work. So I was debating between poly and aluminum. Both would be pretty solid. Poly would maybe have a little bit more give to it, but I wanted something solid though, something hard. And both were about the same price, so it kind of just came down to what I wanted. But luckily at work, we had some scrap poly. This is like a Delrin plastic. It's probably equivalent to about a 90A poly. If I had to guess, it's hard stuff. So, but this is gonna work perfect. We had a bunch of these scraps laying around, and the guys at work told me I could just, you know, take it and use it for whatever I wanted to. So I think it's about the right size I need, and the center bore will be perfect. I'll have to use some type of bushing inside of it, like an aluminum or steel bushing, so that the bolt, you know, whatever's in there isn't rubbing through the poly. But yeah, it was kind of a blessing. Saved some money getting that stuff, and also it just made my life a lot easier because I didn't have to order any. So this is what I'm going to try to use. I think this should be a great first project for the lathe. Nothing too crazy. No, it's not even metal, so it should cut really easily. So I don't really have any huge plans for this video other than I'm going to get this lathe running. So this is the original Atlas motor that came with it. Super cool that it came with it. I think, you know, obviously I'm going to hang on to this thing because, you know, if I ever sell this thing and somebody wants to do a restoration on it, I think it'd be great. I think they'd love to have that. So, but I did kind of run into some issues. It has a really weak start. I can get it running and it seems like it runs smooth, but I think it's just, you know, pretty far gone. A new motor is cheap enough that I figured I'd just buy one instead of messing too much with this. So I'm gonna pretty much leave this thing together, and I got myself a bigger motor, a 1 horsepower. So it came with a stock 1/2 horsepower. Got a 1 horsepower, about the same RPMs, and the shaft is a little bit bigger, so I got a new pulley for it. But I'm gonna try and get this thing mounted up and get this thing ready to use. So that's the first step. So I went ahead and started looking at the wiring for the old motor. I really wanted to use the original switch that came on it. Even though I wasn't doing forward and reverse, I wanted to use that switch just to keep it in the same location and make it easy. And unfortunately, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted. All right, guys, so I had a little bit of change of plans. I'm not going to mess with the cord that's on this original motor. It doesn't have a ground wire, which sketches me out a little bit, so I'm just using this old 3-prong plug that I had laying around that was cut off. So that's going to be my wire. I'm just going to make it so it just spins one direction. I'm not going to have the forward and reverse. I'll basically only be cutting in one direction. And if I want to wire it up later, that, you know, I can wire in a switch. I could probably do that later. So for now, I'm gonna just get it run in one direction, and I went and checked the pulleys. Basically, they all spin in the same direction, so I need it to go counterclockwise. So I got back into the wiring. I just used wire nuts to connect the wires. This thing's all sealed up, so as long as you don't have bare wires exposed and contacting each other, you shouldn't really have any problems. It's a really simple circuit. There's a diagram for counterclockwise, clockwise, or the ability to switch it both directions. So I just wired it in counterclockwise, and this thing scared me a little bit when I started it up. Man, I'll tell you what, this thing has some kick to it. Check this out. I'm gonna plug it in. Oh man. So I went ahead and sealed the motor back up, and now I could go ahead and get it ready to mount to the actual lathe. So luckily 2 of the bolt holes actually lined up, so I didn't have to make mounts. So I put in 2 bolts on one side and C-clamped it on the other side and said that ain't going anywhere, and it was good to go. So at this point I started up the motor and the lathe seemed to all be running well, but in a panic mode I quickly unplugged it because I realized my automatic feed was on and didn't want to run my carriage into the chuck. It works! What's up YouTube? Back in the garage. It's the next day. Last night I quit filming, but I did make some more progress on this lathe. So I hooked up the motor and I also added a nice light. So I added this nice work light here, just an extra one we had laying around. We got a few of them hanging up around the garage. But this will be pretty much perfect. I went ahead and bolted this down as best I could. And it's pretty stable now. And then I also added this switch here. I wish I could have used the stock switch, but the old motor is actually just a 2-prong. It doesn't have a ground, or the 3rd ground prong on it. So the switch, you know, doesn't have a ground hookup. So I opted for just the button. It's a little sketchy because if you plug the extension cord in, you can't tell if the button's on or off. So you kind of got to make sure everything's clear before you turn anything on. But yeah, so click the button. It starts up. I went ahead and ordered a quick change tool post for this with some boring bars, and I got some carbide bit or carbide tip tools. Just make life a little bit easier. And then I'm gonna make, hopefully, I'm gonna make a plastic shield to go over top of this. That way nobody's in the danger zone. It keeps everybody protected. So yeah, and I think I showed these yesterday. This is what I'm gonna start with, some poly that I got from work. And over here, I was able to get this whole subframe up onto the engine stand, which will be very helpful because I gotta, you know, make my diff mount, do some welding, and also for these bushings. Nick's also here.
I am here. Water temp gauge.
Coolant temp gauge.
Nice. I'm just trying to figure out a way to mount it.
I was gonna ask you if you were doing anything interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
kinda. So
yeah, it's race car mods.
Onward. The center. I'm gonna mount it in the center console because I don't really use it for anything, and the hole is only big enough to put like, I don't know. I would put like keys in there or whatever.
Okay.
Just like random stuff. So I kind of ripped it out already. Come back to my messy trunk space here. So essentially, I was just gonna drill a hole in this, but you can't. There's like, I don't know. There's just nothing. I thought behind it was open, but it's not. So I mean, I guess I could get something and kind of just lay it in there.
So does this have a door? Like
yes.
A flap? So you're gonna hide it?
Yeah, so basically I'm just gonna put this plate in there.
If you like didn't care about one of these, you could maybe pop one of those out and replace it.
Yes.
Is that something people do?
Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, it's my oil pressure gauge, my battery voltage. And this one, you can change it. I have it set on like a digital speedo. Okay. So just like creature comforts pretty much.
Yeah, I'd like to get an A-pillar for gauges because I just am gonna need gauges.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched one guy, he put it in the we can go take a gander over here. In this vent.
Oh,
which is like what I did with the Miata, but I did it over there.
Sick.
That would be probably the cleanest way, but then
That's
just
right.
where are the wire? Yeah, I mean you could run the wires. It's just more work.
Yeah.
And I'm lazy.
And then you don't have your vent.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't really do too much, but I mean, that's not like a daily drive this car, so I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean the only other way would be to like drill into your dash or something, but
yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, and then the wires are already in the dash, so you just run them over to the fuse box, which is like not a big deal at all. Instead of having to run them through from the door into the car, they're already behind the dash. So
okay, yeah,
just simplicity. And I can put the little door in it that's broke over there, and then it will cover that. I guess in theory I'm gonna lose like, you know,
storage space.
yeah, like a pack of gum worth of storage spaces.
Nice.
But since I don't daily drive this car, it really doesn't matter.
Don't chew gum while you're drifting because you'll probably bite your lip.
Exactly.
So the subframe, what I'm gonna do with this is actually roll this outside and just clean the whole thing off first. Oh yeah, Nick, I just messaged the RX-8 guy that's been buying all my stuff, and he said he'd be interested in the coilovers. So there's a guy not too far away from me that is really into the RX-8s. He's sad that I'm doing an LS swap because he loves the rotaries, but we've had a pretty good business relationship going on. He's bought a few parts that I didn't need when I bought the car, and he actually just bought the wide body kit. So I'll most likely, what? Yeah, so I'll most likely try to get some updates and maybe get them on the YouTube channel once that kit's done. I think he's having a shop do it, so it'll probably be till the end of the year, you know, or more. But yeah, so I'm at least glad somebody who's really into RX-8's got the kit. It's not a rare kit, you can buy it, but it's just a nice kit and it's expensive, so you don't see a lot of them. But
Takes so long to come in.
yeah, like the guy I bought it from said it took like what, 6 months, he said, maybe.
He forgot he ordered it.
Yeah, he forgot he ordered it. So yeah, so wide body kit's gone, and it's official. I have some more purchases that I made to kind of go more the drift route, and I'll kind of go over those in a different video, probably later. And I'm hoping to get the wheels sold soon, the work wheels. Again, it's just not worth putting expensive wheels on this thing. Yeah, so clean the subframe. That's what I'm gonna do next. Oh, I broke my bit. Didn't see that coming. Bingo. All right, guys, kind of got pulled away from the subframe for the rest of the day here. Just want to say thanks for watching. The lathe is up and running, subframe's out, and I actually went ahead and got some measurements for the bushings that I'm going to make. So I'm not going to include that in this video. I think that'll be a whole video in itself, but that'll be the next step, making some bushings for the subframe and then also mounting the differential. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good night.